Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're joining us. And thank you for joining us today for Dynow's September Lunch and Learn session on Dyknow blocking plans. This is a really great session, I think, in terms of the timing for back to school season. I know by now back to school has pretty much ended, but at this point, you as a teacher or a tech coach has probably had a lot of experience so far this school year implementing blocking plans. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions or maybe just want to get up to speed with learning more about Dyknow blocking plans, best practices, and we also have a couple new exciting feature enhancements that we're going to be sharing with all of you today. So really excited to have you join us. I'm joined today by Casey Higgs, who will be leading the presentation. As always, this session is being recorded. If you're unable to stay for the entire session, or if you registered and didn't have a chance to attend live, we will send you the recording afterwards. And I always like to tell people, these sessions are really great forums of professional development. If you're a tech coach or a teacher and you have colleagues who need help with blocking plans or just want to learn more, watch the session. I encourage you to share it with anyone else in your school or district who might find it useful for learning a little bit more about Dyknow or getting up to speed with what we're talking about here today. As always, as well, I know a lot of you submitted questions ahead of time in the registration process about blocking plans. We'll get to those questions at the end of the session and save some time to answer those. If any questions come up while Casey's presenting on blocking plans, please feel free to put those in the Q&A. We've disabled chat for this webinar, but the Q&A is completely open. So if you have comments or questions, please submit them in there. I'll be keeping an eye on those, and we will definitely answer any of those questions at the end, as well as the questions you submitted ahead of time. I think that's all I have logistics-wise. I want to give a brief overview on Dyknow for anyone who is not an existing customer or has not had an interaction with Dyknow before. So high level overview of who we are. We are Dyknow. We're a school monitoring solution for school issued devices. We have two primary offerings. Our primary product is our classroom management tool or classroom monitoring tool. And that tool really enables teachers to gain real-time visibility into student screens during class, whether you're in the classroom or remote. We actually saw our usage go up 300% during remote learning. So we're encouraged to see a lot of teachers continuing to use Dyknow and use Dyknow even more than normal in a remote and hybrid setting. And with classroom management, teachers can also, engage with students, use blocking plans, which we'll be talking about today, and review student activity and class history after class. Our device impact measurement module is more for the admin or tech coach persona to get the same kind of device usage metrics and technology metrics that teachers would get in the classroom at the school level and the district level as an aggregate to really understand where those dollars that you're investing are going, how technology and devices are being used, and really make the most of your investments and get your return on investment for technology, since the classroom has become so digitally driven, not only in the past year, but in the past few years. So that's a little overview on Dyknow for anyone who's not familiar. And without further ado, we'll jump into our presentation today. So as I mentioned, I'm Tierra Leustig, Marketing Director here at Dyknow, and I am joined by Casey Higgs, as always, who will be leading you all through our Dyknow blocking plan session today. Casey, I'll pass it off to you, and I'll be here in the background for any questions that anyone has.
Thank you so much, Tierra. I'm really excited for today's Lunch and Learn for the exact reason that you mentioned when you kicked this off. School's back in session, right? And teachers will very soon be reminded of how easy it is for students to get off task while they're using their laptops in the classroom, if they haven't already, of course. This is exactly where blocking plans come into play. In Dyknow, a blocking plan is that customized list of websites and/or applications that you can enforce when you're monitoring students in Dyknow to ensure that they can only access specific content. Right, it's Dyno's way of really enabling teachers to prevent off-task behavior, keep students focused during class time when they're using those school-issued devices. Excuse me. And blocking plans can be created at any time in Dyknow. That means before class, during class, after class, etc. When you are creating a blocking plan before or after class, you'll use that blocking plans button at the top of your My Classes page. If you're creating a blocking plan during a monitoring session, you'll click the blue Modify Blocking button, that right-hand screenshot. Click that blue Modify Blocking button to get started. Regardless, though, it's important to note that no matter when you're creating a blocking plan, if you want it to be active in a class, you're going to need to enforce it during that monitoring session. In other words, you can't really block students if you're not monitoring. You can't block outside of monitoring sessions. Okay. Speaking of enforcing, here's how. Once you've started a monitoring session, you'll click that blue Modify Blocking button, and that's going to bring up the blocking screen. Now, from here, you either can select a blocking plan that you previously created, or you can begin creating a new one. So if you want to select a blocking plan you previously created, you'll use that plan list. It's going to pull a drop down of all of your saved blocking plans, the ones that you created, as well as suggested blocking plans, which are actually school-wide blocking plans that an administrator has created, but are made available to all teachers within your school or within your district. If you do want to create a new plan before enforcing, instead of enforcing one that you already created, you'll use the type field to get started. So first you have to decide which type of blocking plan you want. Then once you select those, you'd fill in the remaining fields. No matter which you choose, you'll double check that all of these fields are correct before enforcing, but then once you click enforce, that blocking plan is going to immediately activate in your monitoring session. And you can you can edit that blocking plan at any time using that blue Modify Blocking button again. So if you need to make edits, please feel free to do so, right? Nothing's permanent there, but you can also remove your blocking plan if and when you're finished with it. There's usually a little remove blocking hyperlink that will appear above student thumbnails that you can click to remove it, or it will automatically remove itself once class has ended. Okay. So there are two types of blocking plans, right? We've got allow only and we've got block only. And there's definitely a difference between the two, right? When you're deciding which one you want to go forward with, here's just a little breakdown. Allow only, those are definitely the more restrictive of the two. But they're sometimes quicker to create because you're only entering so many websites and apps. So enforcing an allow only blocking plan, this means that students can only access the websites and apps that you've listed in your blocking plan. Everything else on their devices is blocked. And this makes allow only blocking plans really ideal to use when students are testing, when you've got direct instruction, etc. On the other hand, we've got block only blocking plans. Those are really just the reverse. Students can access anything on their devices except the websites and apps that you list in a block only blocking plan, which makes them perfect for classes that have more flexible lesson plans, maybe if students are doing academic research, those types of situations. You might find it surprising, I certainly did when I found this out, that block-only blocking plans are actually more popular among Dyknow teachers than allow-only blocking plans. Like I said, I thought that was pretty interesting. I'd be curious to know why. Of course, there are also segmented blocking plans though. So if you want to enforce more than one blocking plan at a time, maybe 2 allow only, 2 block only plans, 1 of each, etc. You also have the option though to block just one individual student or a few select students when you're using a segmented blocking plan, which makes them really, really helpful for testing situations, group work, or just those classes where you've got, just a couple students that need help staying on task, more help staying on task than others. And here's an example. So let's say we just want to block a few students, but let most of class be free from monitoring, meaning they can access anything, right? So I would use an allow only or block only plan for those few students that need it, and then select allowing all for the rest of class. Really, I guess it's kind of like enforcing just one blocking plan, but technically you're still segmenting the students on your roster into those 2 groups. But once enforced, you can easily switch students between those 2 groups within a segmented blocking plan. All you got to do is hover your mouse over their thumbnail and click that switch blocking plan button. This is another reason segmented blocking plans are so helpful for testing, right? When a student finishes their tests, you don't want them just sitting there twiddling their thumbs. Rather, they just let you know, and you as the teacher can send them to the less restrictive blocking plan, or the one that's free for all, allowing then those students that have finished testing earlier to still be productive for the rest of class period without jeopardizing the testing integrity that you've got going on for students in that first group, the students that are still testing, right? That's what's most important. Oops, I already hit play. Now we're going to talk about school-wide blocking plans. So a school-wide blocking plan is one created by a Dyknow administrator. It's either an allow only or a block only, but it's automatically made available to all teachers within your school or district, so you can enforce it during any monitoring session. And just to clarify, teachers, you're not going to see school-wide blocking plans listed in your blocking plans tab, like the one at the top of the My Classes page. That's because they're not yours. You're only going to see them once you're actually monitoring a session, and you would go just like you would do to enforce any other blocking plan. You click that blue modify blocking button. You find the plan that you want to enforce from that plan list. Remember, you're looking for suggested blocking plans. Those are the school-wide ones. Then you simply select it. You have the chance to edit it if you'd like, and you enforce it. You know, easy peasy, right? I think so. But I actually get asked, or we get asked as a Dyknow support team all the time, is there a way for me to edit and save as edits in a blocking plan, right? So I kind of want to copy what I'm already given in a blocking plan, but make my own edits to it. Well, we do have a workaround for that. And here are those quick instructions. So ultimately, we click modify blocking, right? Because first we have to actually select the school-wide blocking plan that we want to enforce. So once we do that, it's going to populate on that screen, right? And then here's where you make the edits to it that you would want to make. You might, delete a website, add a website, same thing with applications, no matter what. Once you've made your edits, you click enforce. So then that school-wide blocking plan is active now, and you'll actually click modify blocking again. When you click it again, you'll notice this time there's a name field, like there would be if you were creating your own blocking plan for the first time. So now all you have to do is give it a name, and that's it. So you're really just editing a school-wide blocking plan twice. First the content, then the name. And your twice edited school-wide blocking plan is now saved for future use in any of your sessions. And it's going to appear in that plan list, just like we're seeing here in this video. Pretty awesome. So now that we've covered some of the basics of blocking plans, the type, managing them, etc., I want to talk about really the purpose of this presentation, right? Talk about best practices with using blocking plans. Excuse me while my earbud fell out of my ear. They're new to me. I'm still getting used to them. So let's talk best practices, right? How can you as a teacher use Dyknow blocking plans like a pro? The first one here, it's insisting that I play my video. Awesome. The first best practice that I want to share here is about websites. So the amount of students, or the amount of access that your students will have to certain websites and all of the web pages that are on a website depends on the URLs that you are allowing or blocking in a given blocking plan. You can get really, really specific though, and use full website URLs to identify exactly which pages of a website students can or can't access. For example, this is an allow only plan, and I'm giving students access to a single YouTube video, their Google Forms test, let's see, and Google Classroom, of course, which is where they'll access these links, right? So it's important to note, I'm allowing here access to classroom.google.com, but that does not give students access to Google Search, Hangouts, Gmail, and so on. It's a subdomain, so we're getting a little bit more specific there. And if you enforce an allow only blocking plan that's super specific like this docs.google.com and YouTube URL here that I'm using, right? They're super specific URLs. So please remember that you will need to either include your LMS in this blocking plan, right? Wherever students are going to go to actually get those links, or you're going to need to send students those links via our send a message feature after you've enforced this blocking plan. Because let's say you enforce this specific one that we're looking at here on the screen, the students wouldn't be able to just go to YouTube and search for the video that they're looking for, right? Because I'm not allowing YouTube. So therefore, they're going to have that very full but very unique YouTube URL, which I just simply copy and pasted. Next on my list of best practices is the surefire way for teachers to create an allow only blocking plan That includes, exactly the websites or web pages that your students will need to get to for a given class or, given lesson plan. Knowing which website URLs to block or allow really depends on, your expectations as the teacher. What do you consider on task? What's off task? What do you expect your students to do during this particular class and during this particular lesson plan? We can't tell you what to block. Well, I guess you could send us your lesson plan and we can always help you build it, of course, but right, we don't know here at Dyknow. It really depends. So if you are creating an allow only blocking plan, and you want to make sure that the URLs your students are going to access are the ones you've included, I just recommend walking through the steps yourself. It's really that easy. Like, teachers navigate themselves the same websites and apps that the students are going to use later in class, and just identify what URLs and apps that you use. And that's the same thing that will go into your blocking plan, because students will need to access those same things as well. I've got an example here for you. So let's see. Let's say, again, I'm creating an allow only blocking plan. For this example, though, it's just a generic online assignment for my students. They need to get to the LMS, watch this video, read some articles, answer some questions, etc. So what would I do? Okay. Well, to start the assignment, students need to get to the LMS, right? Because that's where we're going to get all the instructions that I've given them, the necessary links to all these videos, etc. Right? Well, how do they get to the LMS though? A web browser. So that's the first thing I need to allow. You can see here, I've added Google Chrome as the application to my blocking plan. Next, I'm thinking again about the LMS, because this is where students are going, right, to get all this information for their assignment. So what do they need to access in that LMS? Okay, first and foremost, I know they're going to need to access the login page, because that's how they're going to get in. So that would be app.schoology.com, let's say, for example. But still thinking about the LMS, I know that there are a ton of links that the students will need to access within the LMS themselves. So the assignments, other materials, those individual URLs, etc. So, I have an option here. I can either list all of those individual URLs, like here are some examples, and these are just 3, right? But there might be more that they need to access in the LMS that I'm not thinking of. So I'm probably just going to go generic here. So like, if I include only the URL schoology.com, there is a small risk that my students might go to other places within the LMS and work on, assignment to run another class, right? I don't love that, but I know I've got the class history data at the end of class available to me. So I decide I'm going to save myself, the effort of entering these 3 to 4, unique URLs for Schoology. And instead, I'm just going to use one, which is schoology.com. So that's kind of a rule of thumb, right? 3 to 4 unique URLs for the same website. You might consider just going with the full subdomain or the domain URL instead. It is important to note, though, that if ever your blocking plan includes conflicting URLs, so this would be like a full URL, as well as a subdomain or a domain of the same website, only the least specific one applies. So in this example, like if I added schoology.com and app.schoology.com, Dyknow would only recognize schoology.com. That's the most generic one. So then all of Schoology would be allowed by default. Okay, back to this example. So first part of the assignment is a YouTube video, but the video is embedded in the LMS, so I don't have to add a URL here because that URL doesn't change. It's still within Schoology. There's also a couple other hyperlinks that I need to add here. As you can see, some articles that students need to access to complete this assignment. And then I also need to add Google Docs, because that's where students are going to go to answer the questions and complete their assignment. Now here, I don't want to use the generic URL google.com, because then students would be able to access Google Search, Hangouts, Gmail, etc. So I'm just going to use the subdomain URL docs.google.com, as you see here. And I think that should be good. That should be sufficient. But what happens if I enforce that blocking plan and I've accidentally blocked something I shouldn't have? Leads us perfectly to this next best practice, which is what you should do when you enforce an allow only blocking plan and you've unintentionally blocked a website or an app that students need to access. I mean, of course, you're going to want to edit the blocking plan as soon as possible, right? So students can get back to work. Well, to do this, my recommendation is simply use the activity tracker within Dyknow to identify whatever's being blocked and then adjust your blocking plan accordingly. The activity tracker is going to help you identify if your blocking plan is missing a URL, maybe has those conflicting URLs, maybe you're using a vanity URL that you shouldn't be, maybe you forgot to add a web browser, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, it's going to help you know whether you need to add a URL to the list of websites you're allowing, update the list of things you're allowing, et cetera. Let's take a look at an example now of this. So here we've got two students that are blocked, right? And let's say I'm the teacher and they come to me and they say, hey, why am I being blocked? You know, I'm doing the assignment, I'm on task, I'm on a website that I should be on. So what would I do as a teacher? I pull up the activity tracker and look at that blocked student section. And what do I see? Okay, first up, Schoology.com is blocked for Tyler. But I'm thinking, I thought I allowed Schoology. Well, when I look at my list of allowed websites, I see that I was only allowing the Schoology login page, app.schoology.com. So I would just maybe remove that URL and replace it with the more generic Schoology.com. See here, app.schoology.com, it would update to Schoology.com in this situation. Then for the next one, student Ada is blocked at thesaurus.com, but she should be able to access that because this is a language arts class and I say so. So again, I take a look at my blocking plan. This time I notice I was missing a URL. Oops, thesaurus.com wasn't in there at all. So I add it, quick fix, pretty easy. And again, this is all via that modify blocking plan button when you're editing blocking plans during a session. Okay, so that was a situation where, my headphones, I apologize. That was a situation where something was blocked that shouldn't be. But what if something is not blocked? What if something is allowed that shouldn't be? Well, for this, we've got a button. Teachers can use the block activity button in Dyknow, it's specifically in Big View, to quickly and easily add a website or an app to the blocked list for the entire class. When you use the block activity button, you're blocking only really, exactly what you want. So makes it very popular among teachers. If you've got a blocking plan that's already enforced, a block-only blocking plan, clicking that block activity button will simply add to that blocked list, the one that's already enforced. Actually, this block activity button here in Big View, do I have screenshots? Oh, here we go. The block activity button is super popular among teachers, as I mentioned. Last week alone, I looked up some stats. It was used by over 7,500 teachers in just 1 week. So a super effective way to quickly update a block-only blocking plan is use that block activity button in Big View. Here's a little how-to for that, right? You find a task, you find a student that's off task, whether you're looking at them through your thumbnail or looking at them through the activity tracker on the right-hand side. Then you'll bring that student into Big View and click the block activity button to easily block it for the entire class. Now let's look at my example. So let's say in this class, I am blocking social media, but I forgot to add Google Hangouts. So when I see this student on Google, I pull up her thumbnail into Big View and click that block activity button. It's as easy as that. So Google Meet now was added to my list of block sites for all the students in my class. Pretty easy. Pretty easy and very, very effective, that's for sure. All right. Now let's move on in our list of best practices. And we are going to talk about bundles. A bundle within a Dyknow blocking plan is just a group of related websites or apps. So for example, here, I've got a couple examples that I want to show you. The first one here is the web browsers bundle, and you would enter it into the applications field of an allow only blocking plan. When you do that, you're enabling students to access any web browser, but none of that web browser's extensions. So this is really, really helpful for teachers that are monitoring Chromebooks, since most of that activity happens within the Google Chrome browser. So they could access the browser, but none of the Google Chrome extensions. But this is equally helpful for teachers that are monitoring Windows, students that use Windows devices, PCs, because those students are simply more likely to have different browsers installed on their device. And as a teacher, you probably don't care which browser they use, right? As long as they're getting to the websites that you've identified as on task for the given class. Excuse me. So web browsers, any web browser, no extensions, it goes in an allow only blocking plan in the applications field. Another example here is our common distractions bundle. We actually just released this last month. This particular bundle helps teachers really quickly, really easily block over 300 of the most distracting websites and apps out there. So we're talking games, music, social media, streaming services. I can't even think of any others, and so on. There are over 300 of them. And we're going to look at an example. I'm really proud to say, though, I did some more research on our common distractions blocking plan bundle. And almost 3,000 blocking plans around the world have already included this common distractions bundle, which is awesome. It was just released that month. That's how popular it is thus far. You know, that's how effective it is. Absolutely, you should check it out if you haven't already. And I'm going to show you an example of how to enforce the common distractions bundle, but you know, really the same how-to applies for any bundle. It goes in either the applications or the websites field, depending on which one you're using. Okay. So here's my common distractions enforcement video. So this is going to walk us through, again, how to add the common distractions bundle to a blocking plan. We start our monitoring session, of course, and then we are going to click modify blocking like we do every time we need to enforce a blocking plan, no matter which one we're creating or enforcing. And then we're going to enter common distractions either in the websites or the applications field. For this bundle, it doesn't matter which one you enter it into because it contains both websites and apps. So it's automatically going to populate in both of those fields, no matter which one you selected. So common distractions, again, is best for a block-only blocking plan, right? You're blocking all of those distracting sites and apps. But it can be entered into either the websites or the apps field. And if ever you want to view, you know, what's included within a bundle, you want to know exactly what am I blocking, what am I allowing, what the heck is web browsers, what's a common distraction, you would simply populate it into a blocking plan just like this. And then you'll notice there's a black drop-down arrow just to the right of the name of that bundle. Click that. And then you've got this list that will expand to show you every single thing that's included within that blocking plan. Now this one, again, I said there were over 300. This is a long list of scrolling, so I'm probably going to stop this video and spare you all, but you get the idea. You can see what's included within a bundle, and definitely recommend using these because it makes creating blocking plans really effortless. I hope you do use it, and please let us know how you like it. Okay. Now I'm going to pause my video scrolling of the common distractions, and we are going to talk about our final best practice. The final one I'll show you today is really all about class history and how to use this data to evaluate and constantly improve your blocking plans. After a monitoring session, when you're reviewing this class history data, I recommend using the allowed and the blocked filter specifically to help you identify those opportunities to improve your blocking plans or maybe create a new one. For example, here in this class history data, I see as a teacher right away that YouTube, Minecraft, and addictinggames.com were all allowed and accessed during this class. And not just that, they were accessed for over an hour during this class each. So as a teacher, I might consider adding these 3 websites to my favorite blocking plan, or maybe I consider using that common distractions bundle after all. Or I also have the option to maybe switch from a block-only blocking plan to maybe a more restrictive allow-only blocking plan if I'm just constantly seeing off-task activity that I don't like. But you get the idea, right? You can use this data so effectively to help build and enhance your blocking plans. You know exactly what students were accessing, whether it was allowed or not. You can also use, folks, I sincerely apologize about these earbuds today. You can also use the class history data to see how effective your blocking plans are in a given class. So to do that, you use the blocked filter, And you're identifying specifically the number of distractions that are defeated per class or per week, per month, since the beginning of the class, etc. Now, this distractions defeated number is a number that's probably going to be very, very high at the beginning of the year. It always is. I always tell teachers this during my training sessions. But please don't worry. The number of distractions defeated will decrease as the year goes on, because your students will eventually learn to use their devices more responsibly, and eventually they will learn to stop fighting your very powerful blocking plans. We see it happen all the time. Okay. Now, before we wrap up this lunch and learn, I hope you've all been doing a lot of both, by the way. Let's look at one more thing. Yesterday, Dyknow released a brand new feature, the ability to assign a blocking plan to any of your classes. Yes, that's right, folks. Default blocking plans are here. Anytime a teacher adds a default blocking plan to a class, that blocking plan then will automatically be enforced for any monitoring session that is started for that class. I hope you're as excited about this as I am. This is a feature that's been really highly requested by teachers, and it should be a huge convenience added. So to assign a default blocking plan, right, take advantage of this new feature. You're going to find the class that you want to assign it to from your My Classes page. And you're going to click that edit hyperlink for the relevant class. Once you do that, you'll be taken to the edit class modal, as you would if you wanted to edit the class roster or name of it, right? But now you'll see that there's a default blocking plan field towards that upper right, which of course is what you'll use to search for and select the blocking plan that you want to use to assign as default. Now, this list that you're going to see here is going to include any blocking plans that you previously created. Those are the My blocking plans, right? You're also going to see any school-wide blocking plans. Again, those appear as suggested blocking plans in this list. And finally, you'll be able to select a segmented blocking plan if you'd like. If you do select segmented blocking plan here, you'd be redirected to another screen where you would set up that segmented blocking plan and then be returned here. So that once your blocking plan is assigned here and present in this actual field, you'll be able to simply click save in the upper right-hand corner. And then again, your default blocking plan is assigned and will automatically be enforced in any monitoring sessions for this given class. Even if you don't have a default blocking plan assigned to a class, but you enforce a blocking plan during a monitoring session, Dyknow is going to prompt you to add one. So again, really, really convenient, super helpful, so exciting. I really hope you all enjoy this feature. I know a ton of teachers have used it already since just yesterday's release. So I encourage you to do so as well. But of course, don't forget that Dyknow support is here to help you with all of your blocking plan needs. You can reach us via phone, via chat, via email, and I hope you do. Now I will pass it over to Tierra for some Q&A.
Thank you, Casey. I loved all of those best practices, and I think we're all super excited about the default blocking plans. I can say, we had a question come in via the Q&A about default blocking plans, and we had so many questions come in prior to this lunch and learn asking how to set up default blocking plans. So I think it's proof that it's a highly requested feature, proof that a lot of teachers are looking to use it, and hopefully so many teachers will start to use it now that it's released. We are over on time, but I want to make sure we get to some of these questions. So if you have to run, everyone who is joining us, feel free, but we're going to stay for a few minutes and get the questions answered that came in during your presentation, Casey. So to jump into it, Sarah Margison had a question about your first tip, which was about blocking specific URLs, for instance, on YouTube. And she asked, what does that do with any suggested video content on YouTube? So for instance, the videos that pop up after the video that the teacher wants them to watch, or the videos that appear to the side.
Those would simply be blocked. As soon as that URL changes, which would be as soon as that YouTube video ended likely, and it redirected you to another one, that site would go to be blocked as well. Super
awesome.
Convenient. Yeah.
Easy answer.
Yes.
A couple more. Can a Dyknow admin for our district create a plan and have it appear for all users on the plans list?
Yes, those are the school-wide blocking plans that I had mentioned before. So again, those are created only by a Dyknow administrator user. But as soon as he or she does that, there's just a little checkbox that says, make this plan available school-wide. School-wide is actually district-wide. So if you are a larger district with multiple teachers, or excuse me, multiple schools, that plan would still show up for you, no matter which school you're at within your district.
Perfect. Couple more questions. Jeff Webb asked, how can we debug Dyknow blocking using an allow list with an entry still getting a no on task or not on task tab popping up for that?
Great question. Again, for this, first, I would check into that activity tracker, see exactly what URL or what application is being blocked, and then pull up your blocking plan again and compare that. It is likely that maybe there was a typo, maybe you forgot to add something. Maybe there are conflicting URLs. That would be the situation where I might allow app.schoology.com and also schoology.com, right? Those are conflicting URLs because one's a subdomain and one's a domain URL. And Dyknow is always going to default to the more generic one. So schoology.com would be allowed in that particular example, any particular page on schoology.com. The only other thing I'll say to this is that a quick reminder that you should not use vanity URLs in a blocking plan. These are things like bit.ly, things that you make a URL look pretty so it's shorter. No shortened URLs, no vanities. We want the real deal. And that's why I suggest, walking through these steps yourself. That way, all you have to do is copy and paste. And, human error is always going to be a thing. We're not perfect, no matter how hard we try. So yeah, use the activity tracker, use the resulting class history to edit your plans. There's probably always an answer for everything. If you're not finding it right away, that's a perfect opportunity to reach out to us and we can help you with that as well.
Perfect. And then last question, which is a pretty generic question. How can the blocking plan application list be leveraged to work with Chromebooks?
Great question. So Chromebooks are definitely unique in that the operating system limits some of the monitoring. When you're monitoring students on Chromebooks, you're only able to see and block any activity within the Chrome browser. So it has to be browser-based activity. It's just, again, the nature of the Chromebook operating system and the way we interact with it, you're not able to see and or block the Chromebook desktop or applications outside of the browser. So, recognizing that restriction, allow-only blocking plans are still incredibly helpful, as is the web browsers bundle that would allow students to access the Google Chrome browser, of course, for any of the websites that you listed, but not include any of those extensions. So at least it's keeping students, restricted to the particular website activity that website or web page has, no extensions as well. Did I answer that question sufficiently, Tierra?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
And with the viewing all tabs on Chromebooks as well, that's another kind of option there for seeing everything that's happening in addition
You're
to
totally
the blocking
right.
plans.
Great point. Yes, now with Chromebooks, you have the ability to see all of the open website tabs. So you've got much more visibility, and you can even select one of those background tabs to become the active tab, or even close out any of the active or background tabs on student Chromebook devices. Awesome reminder.
Yes, definitely. Well, one last thing before we let everyone go. Thank you everyone for all of your questions, by the way. It's always great to get those answered and fill in the holes from what might have not gotten answered during the presentation. One last thing for all of you who are existing Dyknow users and Dyknow customers, we recently are launching a user community where we are going to be facilitating a few weeks worth of content in terms of exclusive lunch and learns, some feedback sessions, asynchronous and synchronous discussions. And we're really creating a group of people who are passionate and believe in the Dyknow product and want to see more from the Dyknow product. So we're going to work directly with this group of people to gather feedback on what you want to see from the product, questions that you have, feature requests, feature enhancements, anything that you want to see from Dyknow. And we really want to understand, what do our users want in terms of the direction of Dyknow's tools and Dyknow's products, and really help you by building those out. So if you are a current Dyknow user and this sounds like something you you would be interested in participating in. It is completely free and we facilitate everything, low time commitment. It's really flexible in terms of how much you want to be involved, how little you want to be involved. I think it's going to be a fantastic opportunity to not only grow your PLN with other Dyknow users and other educators from across the country and across the world, but also have a firsthand say in kind of where our product is going and how our tools are going to evolve as we move forward. So if you'd like to join this community, you can just go to that bit.ly link, bit.ly/user-com, and fill out the short Google form that's there. We also have a page that you can go to on our website to learn more about it, and I'll share that link to the website page as well as the Google form in our follow-up email, where we'll send you the recording as well as the slide deck. A lot of people asked if they could get access to the slide deck following this presentation. We typically don't send it out, but we will for this one because I think it's a really good asset that you could use for professional development, helping other teachers in your district or school understand blocking plans and these best practices. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We will be hosting our next Lunch and Learn at the end of October, so keep an eye out from that. Thank you, Casey, again for your great presentation. It's always awesome to have you answer these questions and share information on Dyknow. And we will see you all at our next Lunch and Learn. Have a wonderful weekend and have a wonderful rest of your day.